All right. Hello. How are y'all doing? I've got just about us on starting time. Everybody good to go and start up? And yeah, let's do that. I'm always good on punctuality. Yes, I like that. Make us new bodies. That's great. That's really good. That's the theme for today, actually. So, real quick, just to go ahead and give you some formalities as people are coming in. I'm going to kind of just do a 2-minute kind of icebreaker, and we're going to see who's the best shape because I'm going to make you do push-ups and sit-up. No, I'm kidding about that part. Okay, just joking. But hey, very good. Look at that. That's actually one of the exercises: to sit and to stand. So let me tell you who I am. My name's Taryn, and I live in Peachtree City, not too far from here. And I want to thank you all for coming today for our health and wellness presentation. I'm going to watch the time closely and make sure that we don't go above and beyond our time, just to respect out of courtesy for your time. And again, thank you so much for being able to join us here. And I'm going to go through some of the objectives, too, of what we want to get done. But before I do that, just some housekeeping things. I'm going to ask if you please, if you have an urgent question, feel free to throw the hand up as we're going along. But I'll reserve about 10 to 15 minutes of Q&A at the end if that works. I generally find that better so we can kind of keep the flow going. And also, for the purposes of the recording with the microphone, I'm going to repeat. If you have a question, I'm going to repeat the question right back so that if there's anybody who's listening in, they can understand what the question is before I answer it, so it's reiterated. And as we're going along, my goal is that I like what you said, is to make new bodies. And that's what the emphasis today is how do we get, has anybody heard of the book Younger Next Year? That's a great book. And it's true, by the way, too. The whole premise of, actually, it's implying what it literally says. How do we become younger next year? And that will be a theme that we'll see a lot as we're going along today. As I mentioned, my name's Taryn. I've been doing exercise, fitness, psychology for about a little bit over 25 years. So I was about 2 years old when I started. I'm just kidding about that. But seriously, 25 years right out of college. And I enjoy doing this. I am an active full-time personal trainer. I'm also a sports psychologist. I also teach for 2 different college universities, and I love doing events like this with Fayette Senior Services. I was here last June, about a year ago just about, and on a lot of topics that I discussed. Today, you're in for a treat. You're in for the best one yet that I've done, at least half a dozen of these. But this one today, think of this as a synthesis, so to speak. We're going to combine everything of what I've been preaching for the last year since I've been invited out to Fayette Senior Services doing these, because I do them here, but primarily in Peachtree City. So for today, I want to have fun, I want it engaging, and I don't want this time to hopefully not be boring, but I want it to be insightful, educational, but I really want the dialogue and engagement. I don't want this to be a one-on-one monologue. I want us to exercise both our brains, but also physical exercise too. I was joking a few minutes ago when I said I'm going to make you all bounce around and jump up and down. We're not going to do that, but I may have you maybe stand up once in a while. I may have volunteers to say, who wants to come up here and show me one of the exercises? So as we do that, I encourage you, engage, because that's the best way to do it. Is movement is key. The more we're moving, the faster we move, the younger we age, right? Just that's basic physics. It's 101. We're going to talk about all of the key items that incorporate how to keep us young and how to keep us fit and how to keep us in really, really good shape. And that's what, again, kind of the benchmarks of what our goals in life are. If I asked in here, who would love to live the rest of your life as young and pain-free as possible and stress-free and all of that good stuff, I would expect everybody, 100%, hands up all the way, right? That's the goal, is because, again, we want to enjoy life. And it's really important to figure out, we hear so many misconceptions. For example, let's throw one out there, fad diets, right? Anybody in here ever tried a diet before besides me? Yeah, a few of us, right? And how many different diets are there? There's more than we can count, right? On a lot of these presentations before, I've been invited to talk about myth busting, for example. I dispelled some of the diets that are out there. And then I encourage some other, I don't like to use the word diets, by the way, eating lifestyle, right? Habits, healthy habits of eating. It shouldn't be a diet. Diet implies something temporary. Permanent, right? This is what we're looking for, longevity, is how do we eat properly? And that's going to be, again, embedded a little bit as we're going along with the flow of this. But, one of the number one things here is we see when we're growing and gracefully older and we're aging, when we notice people are walking, and again, we'll see this a lot, you may notice that over time, people tend, and you see my feet, to shuffle when they're walking. And if you look at my neck and my head, and they kind of walk like this with their shoulders rounded forward, that's the common, typical posture of a lot of people, right? That we see a lot of times. And that just happens. We're humans. We're vertical with our vertebrae. That's just the way it works. We stand, and thus our discs compress over time. How can we combat that? We're going to talk about that in terms of posture. Related to, by the way, core. Who knows what the word core means? We're talking about, right? Yes, absolutely. Here, we all work our core, right? What can we do? Crunches and planks and all of that stuff. How do we get a stronger core? Well, if we do that, then maybe that might help us align a little better. And tying in that is flexibility, right? That's important. You want really good posture, you want good core strength, but that also goes hand in hand with how our range of motion on our bodies are, because we don't want to be too tight, all right, over time. Who in here, by a show of hands, when you wake up in the morning, anybody besides me stiff in the morning, just kind of, yeah, yes, certainly, right. I thought I was the only one, but yeah, I'm good. Glad. Misery, again, is great, enjoyed by company, so again, I'm glad to hear that. But in all seriousness, one of the first things I do that I'll share with you in the morning before I grab my coffee is I lie down and I stretch. I do a lot of and I'm not talking about a thorough yoga class. I'm talking about not even longer than 2 or 3 minutes of stretching exercises. We're going to cover some of those as well, too. And part of this total encompassing of wellness is strength, right? Muscular strength. Looking around, looks like everybody in this room looks very physically fit. I can tell that all of you do a lot of muscular strength training. That is good. That is excellent. And that's what we're talking about, right? Bicep curls and push-ups and, lunges and squats. All of those fun things that I just spat out of my mouth that we like to do in terms of... Is this from your comedy routine? Very good. I like that. That's right. That is good. And again, I like this. This is good ice breaking because, again, y'all, and I really do mean it. That's why I love doing these, because I love to connect and network and laugh and share in the great things that we're talking about with getting physically fit. Functional movement patterns, very important, very key. I'll share something real quick. I have 3 little kids. They're 9, 7, and 2, and so a lot of times in my life, what I have to really be careful with, especially, let's say the 2-year-old, now that she's like 30 pounds, runs up to me, I don't want to do this and say, hey, how's it going? Oh, and then what happens? I might pull my back out, and I've done that before, unfortunately. So don't think that I'm, impervious to that. I'm definitely susceptible to hurting myself, and that's what I want to talk about also is injury prevention. Picking up the groceries off the floor. There's a right way and there's a wrong way. Here's a wrong way to do it. Anybody know in here what I did wrongly when I'm picking up the groceries? Didn't bend my knees. I heard it. Very good, very good. A better way might be like this, right? Something to where we're doing legs, and I just did a squat. So a squat exercise might be functional, and that's what we'll talk about a lot as well. And I want to tie it all together. As I mentioned, right at the start of kind of this introductory was discussing, again, if you think about it in terms of a graph, you have, strength, cardio, flexibility, you have stress management, sleeping, eating right. I mean, my goodness, we can just go on and on with this big pinwheel, right, that we can throw in there that's really important. But if we look from a 30,000 foot high view and just look down, what are our high level primary objectives that we want? And really, if we could tie it all together, hopefully that'll lead us to what's called aging with confidence. Okay, that's so important and critical. I really want that for all of us. And I have probably, I don't know, I've lost count, maybe 40 to 50 clients that I see every week. And I think I've done the statistics, but roughly 80% of them are about age range from 75 to 90 years. And when I see those people every week, that's what I want, is I want them to be self-confident, independent. I want them to grow gracefully as we age in terms of again, I said this already, but avoiding pain, feeling good, feeling physically fit, but also feeling mentally fit as well too, because that all ties together. Any questions before we jump into it, kind of? Because we're going to go lightning fast. And we're also going to take a look at a lot of the different exercises as well. But before we do that, I just wanted to throw up a slide up here that has some kind of interesting statistics that has been done by very recent research. I'll just share with you real quick that the last, if I do the math, I don't know, maybe about 7 years, so about, since 2017, 2018, I've been entrenched with dealing with what is the latest, kind of keeping my finger on the pulse, so to speak, of what are all of the data that's showing us with empirical research, right? So, when you look at data and you look at, just a quantified metric of how is the U.S. population doing right now, for example, right? You look at, say, CDC, you look at the World Health Organization, and you just look at just different types of empirical research that's readily available and that we can look up, and it'll tell us that we've got a problem. One thing that's important to note is that, and again, this isn't going to be coming shocking, especially if those of us that have come in here, we regularly, routinely listen to other professionals in the business, they'll share with you as well that we know that we have an obesity epidemic, correct, right? That over 2/3 of our population right now as we speak are considered overweight. And about almost 50%, if we keep going at this direction, will be obese in the next 20 years. If we keep going linearly like this, if you look at it as a graph, right? And again, it's crazy. There's no excuse for that. But, when we look at these numbers in terms of, okay, well, what's going on? Do people exercise enough? In general, no. Most of the people in our population don't, even though we know what the data shows us. Do we eat right? My goodness, like you go down the street anywhere, and what do you see? Just nothing but fast food restaurants. In our country is what I'm referring to mostly, but also the world too. The world population, we have an eating issue where, and especially just again, if you talk about the sample of the Southeast region where we live in Atlanta, Georgia. Just to share with you a quick story, we're going back about, let's see here, to 2001. So what is it? Do the math, about 23 years ago. I was working as a restaurant manager at Waffle House right over here on Highway 85, not far. It's literally about a mile away. That was my store, Unit 362, back in 2001, just a fun fact. And the reason why I bring that up is that the younger me looked at that thinking that was going to be my career path before I got into this. I thought this will be great. I'll cook greasy burgers and hash browns and waffles for everybody, and I'll contribute to the growing epidemic problem that we have. Now, that was the younger me who didn't see long-term, because I didn't care. I was like, yeah, as long as I'm making a lot of money, I'm going to be a Waffle House manager, and I'll be cooking grease for the rest of my life and eating horribly. But that was, and again, I'm not to say there's anything wrong with working as a manager at Waffle House. That's fine. But that wasn't my direction because, and again, it's not like I had an eye-opening epiphany or experience that happened at that point. What's happened now with the benefit of hindsight here in 2024, looking back, is that I've considered myself lucky and fortunate that I had a passion for exercise science, because that's where kind of this whole journey for myself began. And so now that we know, again, the critical key things are exercise, eating right, social engagement. One of my most recent talks that I did over at the Peachtree City location in terms of, again, a great statistic showing that the cognitive decline would happen if we're isolated, alone. We saw that a lot in the last several years with COVID. During the quarantining and isolating, a lot of people, if again, what the studies will show, and that's so recent, but they'll really show how people have cognitively declined because of, again, not getting that mental stimulation and regular socialization with other people and engaging like we're doing now, that we're kind of out of it. Mental well-being, that kind of ties into, again, what we're talking about with cognitive issues and again, depression and anxiety. And so, and then again, I mentioned, again, quality of sleep too. That's another really important thing in this, and now again, not to go down that rabbit hole, but I've seen it a lot in my profession that, because a lot of my clients also are high-level executives and they're really asked to perform a lot. They travel a majority of their time. They have to get up super early in the morning and then work like a 12-hour day. and they neglect kids' stuff, like they don't go to sports activities, they skip important events, they can't make weddings because everything is just tied into the whole stress of having to have their job be their number one priority. And I get it. I'm not bashing on that. I'm a victim of that myself. But I think in our country, we're kind of just really in a pressure cooker where we're really expected to do that. And in this great country, we've definitely had that in terms of high expectations. I know I'm preaching to the choir here. We've heard this, that, really push to performance, and that's what we're asked to do. And again, I get back to just needing, sleep is important. I mean, a lot of fitness professionals I work with, they'll concur. They'll say that if you don't get enough sleep, that's almost just as bad as if we, get too much sleep, say, and don't move enough and are sedentary. So it all ties hand in hand. In my opinion, I think it's a happy medium, and it's just a balance of how we're going to do that. Okay, let's go back to what we talked about, the very first thing that we wanted. Now we're jumping into our objectives with proper posture. So when we think about our posture in terms of, I mentioned this, I'll throw this out there. With cell phones, for example, ever since the great invention of cell phones and cell phone usage, maybe cell phone overuse, has cell phones in general, do you think that has anything to do with what we see with posture problems? Oh, I see a nodding of the head. Do you mind sharing? Why would you nod? Very good. I like that. She gave a great example. People sitting like this, and I, again, am a guilty participant of that. Not in the car, of course. I don't want you to think that. I would never do that, of course. I'm talking about here or at the restaurant or what have you. But yes, overuse of cell phones for sure. And this is causing what's called kyphosis, where the neck is going like this. We don't need any more help with that, by the way. Our spines are supposed to be an S curve, where you're supposed to have a curve here and then another curve here to look in alignment. But instead of the S curve, what's happening is we're creating a C curve, where for the most part now, if you look at this, it's almost like the letter C. And another problem, I drive a lot, by the way. If you're in the car, and let me turn this sideways so you could see, yep, when you're driving, I'll say when I'm driving, if I'm like this, or if I'm, sitting down and I got my remote control and I'm watching TV and Netflix, whatever, I'm going to fall asleep, it's just not good posture. One of the things that helps me, I'll give you an example. In my car, I have what's lower lumbar pillow. I see a lot of nodding. Yes, very, very helpful. I had a physical therapist show me that and share that with me. And I laughed. I was like, that's not going to help me. It has helped me immensely. And you're talking about somebody, by the way, who's been through herniated disc, back problems, bulging discs. I've had it all in terms of lower back, L4, L5. I've had just problems there. But the lower pillow, and then there's another pillow, and it's a thicker pillow that starts higher right underneath your posterior, so you're tilted like this correctly. So if you think about it, if you're sitting up and forward more, that gives me my S curve that you want. And you could do that not only in the car, but also in the office too, of course. You had it up first. Yes, ma'am.
Years ago, I had developed a hip problem. I was doing a lot of driving, and I did not realize that I practically had my knees touching the dash.
Yep.
So the physical therapist said to me, get your seat back as far as it will go and as high as it will go.
There you go. Yes, I like that. Yeah.
The leg, which was the right one, was in a more natural position.
Yep, and you're right. I could relate to you as well. I've got long legs, and for me, I drive a little tiny Honda Fit. It's like their most economical car on a budget, and I do that because I do so much driving, as I mentioned. But you're right. I have to put that seat way back because after long trips, and still my knee is kind of like this, I will have issues in my right hip a lot. So I can relate to that. Good example.
As the day wears on a trip, then of course you have to be careful with your shoulders, when you're sitting way back.
Good point. Good illustration. I love it. Yeah.
I mean, when I stopped and started to get out of the car and my leg didn't come with me, I knew I had issues that I had to take care of with that pain in my hip.
Yeah. And how are you now?
Well, I don't travel quite as much, but yes, and even when my sons then get in my car, they think, what is this?
But you're right. You're absolutely right. Thank you for the example. I do the same thing. I have it all the way back, and my car, you go like this, you pump it up high, and then the seat goes up high. So I have it at my highest setting as well. My head's literally here at the ceiling on it. Well, in my case, mine tilts up higher here underneath my butt because of the pillow that I have. It's called Relaxo Back. It's on Amazon for like $40. It's worth it. The physical therapist recommended that to me. And so it starts high here and then it goes lower here. But yeah, you had a question too, ma'am?
I wanted to ask about the pillow. What was the name?
Oh, right. Yeah, let me repeat it, please. Relaxo Back. I should be their salesperson. I tell everybody to get that because I'm being serious. Like that physical therapist, I remember. I'll tell you right now, just a quick story, because again, this is relevant. What we're talking about. I was in severe. Anybody in here ever had back pain, back spasms? Yeah, I see. You know what it's like, and I had that. Mine was caused from wrestling. I was a wrestler for many years. And over time, they did x-rays, MRIs, and they said, you have really compressed your lower spine badly. And so anyway, for me, when I went to the physical therapy, they taught me about proper posture, what we're talking about, but also in terms of some of the exercises that we'll get into and engaging your core, which is so important, and it's very fundamental. So,
without going on the internet and Amazon, where can you find a pillow like that?
Oh, good question. Where can you find that pillow without the internet or Amazon? Good question. I'm trying to think. You've stumped me on that one. I'll have to get back to you on that because that's a really, yeah. Where?
We'll order it for you.
That's a good, yeah. I'll get it for you. That's a really good idea, actually. I talk about it enough. I should keep some of them in stock. It's not like they would have them at a regular store. Yeah, I may be wrong about that, but maybe a chiropractic office. I'm thinking, if you know of any chiropractic office, I'm not familiar with Fayetteville, but if there are, there must be. Then I would try a chiropractor or a physical therapy office. One of those places surely would have access to something like that. Because again, the PTs are the ones that gave it to me, so that's why I would refer them. Yeah. So again, very important. My challenge, if anything, on posture would be always at all times sitting tall and just again, think about it like a ballerina, right? When you look at ballerinas, they're always taught to do this, to pull the string up at the head, and it makes them, really, really tall, right? Yeah. Those of us who have daughters or granddaughters, that you've always heard that in class they teach them that they're pulling the string at the head, and that's how tall they are as a ballerina, so that they're tall. I mean, it's amazing, like when you're walking, and if normally, like I'll pick on myself for a second, if I'm walking like this, but then I notice, I'm like, oh wait, I'm not walking right with good posture. And I even just tilt my chin up, and I stick my chest out, and I look up, and I roll my shoulders back, I feel like I'm a foot taller, right? I mean, again, it gives you that confidence too. It really does, because then you're like, wow, I'm taller, and everyone else is shorter than me. So, yes, sir. Right now you are, because you're sitting, so that's fine.
Give us examples of those.
Yeah. So, for example, when they talk about chin tucking, you want to, again, if you're like this, what you want to do, if you look at my head, you want to bring your head back like this. You don't want it forwards. You don't want to extend it. So try to bring it back without looking up. So without looking up, just bring it backwards like this. If you're tucking your chin in, that eliminates what they call kyphosis. Kyphosis is the opposite. Kyphosis is like this, like walking like that. I mean, you really see some extreme examples of that, right? When you're up against a wall, like for wall, here we go. Yeah, flat back wall. On walls here, and this is a good test, by the way. If you stand flat back against a wall, and if I look like this is not correct. My head's not here. I should be like this. So you would tilt your head here. Why? Because this would keep me in proper alignment. This would be vertical. This is how we should be. Instead, most of the times, like naturally, because again, my posture's not perfect. My head did not go to the wall. Usually I'm walking like this. My head is slightly forward a little bit, and I should still work on that. I should correct that. And so really, when you go up against the wall, you could put your hand underneath your lower back to get that nice space there that you see. Tighten and engage your core. Have your head here, have your shoulders here, and you would just walk. And I mean, it feels weird at first because, who's normally to walk like this, right? But I encourage, like a lot of clients I work with, I'm always telling them, like, for example, I have a client and she's 99. and we're walking, and we walk on the golf cart paths where I live in Peachtree City. And I'm constantly telling her, and I'm just like, okay, stick your chest out while she's walking, put your shoulders back, look up, and breathe. And she says, how am I supposed to remember how to do all that while we're walking? She's funny. She's just joking. But seriously, I mean, it is a lot when you think about it, again. And what did I say earlier about the shuffling? We want to avoid walking like this. Instead, we want to walk with big steps too, right? Promoting big steps. And again, that's all things that we can work on too going forwards. Mm-hmm.
How do you match that up with walking that way and trying to avoid the uneven sidewalk?
Ooh, that's a good question. So like, walking this way versus if like the sidewalk's uneven, just take your time. I tell everybody that. And if we have a walker or a cane, I always encourage to use those as much as possible because that gives us better surface space and area. If you see like a broken sidewalk and it's all jacked up and everything, take your time, slow down, just look at your space. Can I go a different way? I'll give you an example. One of the fitness centers where I'm at in Atlanta, I don't know why they created the building this way. It's been around for 35 years, so maybe that's why they didn't think about it. But the majority of the clients that work out there are in their 70s to 90s. And when you walk to the front of the building, it's a big step up on the sidewalk to get into the building. I don't understand that. The ramps for like wheelchairs, for example, are on the sides of the building. So a lot of times people have to park and they have to walk like a good, I don't know, not really far, but it just doesn't make practical sense. Then they have to go up the, sidewalk that's flat because some of them either will have a cane or a walker or a wheelchair, or they just don't feel comfortable going up on that sidewalk, and doing that. And so I would encourage you, don't take the chance whenever possible. Be careful, please, when you're doing it. I always say, though, slow down. And I should tell myself that a lot, too. Slow down, slow down, slow down. Because we tend to just go too fast on a lot of things. Mm-hmm. Yes? Oh, yeah, right. I'm sorry. Yeah. Right. So scapular retraction, here for my upper back, I should be retracting or bringing them back towards the wall. Yeah, I skipped that. I'm sorry. So in other words, for example, anytime you could do this just standing right here, if you do pulling like this in the air, I'm pulling like this. I want to pinch my shoulder blades back. You really want to strengthen these back muscles because here's why. When we're sitting like this forwards and we're walking forwards, we are overworking these pectoral muscles. These are being overworked, and vice versa, conversely, these are being, conversely, I should say, overstretched, you see. So because of that, what we should do is do the opposite. We should strengthen this back here, strengthen the back muscles, and stretch more of our chest, okay? And so that's important. With the scapular retractions, you can, and again, I saw in here, I know there's a fitness center, there's equipment. And by the way, too, all the exercises we do now today, we're not going to use one piece of equipment. We're not going to use fitness equipment, I should say. You could do this again with, over time, like if I've got a 16-ounce water bottle here and I want to do some back rows, I can literally just do this right here, and I'm going to count till I get to 20. I'm going to go 1, 2, all the way to 20. That's working the upper back muscles, and this is in place of like a 1-pound dumbbell almost, right? That's all I'm doing right there, is just there. And then I would just switch and do the other side, a scapular retraction of just exercising that upper back. And that's one thing that we can do. So good question. And again, just to continue on with other exercises, we've got things like...
One more back here.
Isn't there a rule of thumb for cracked concrete and stuff that's just supposed to look 10 feet in front of you or something?
Oh, like with walking?
Yeah.
The question, yeah, you're asking like the rule of thumb, like look 10 feet ahead while you're...
Yeah, I read it someplace and I forgot.
Yeah, well, you know what? In general, I always think about it like driving. We can all think about when we first got our driver's license. Here's a good analogy, right? When you drove in your car, and I know at least my instructor always told me, what did they always tell you in terms of distance, like where to look? They always told you to look as far as you can, right? 10 cars ahead, right? Because what happens is if we have a myopic viewpoint and we're only looking at the car in front of us, we're not even looking at that. We're even like, just looking. That's the worst in terms of driving. You want to have a nice, clear, long vision. And they even say, I forget what it is of DMV, but like with, for example, one of the test questions was when it's raining, how many car lengths should you be back behind the person if you're going 60 miles an hour? I think the answer was like 6 car lengths, right? Like 1 for every 10 miles an hour, something like that. You know, same thing with walking. I think that might be a fair analogy, because if you think about it, here's why, again, to answer your question with, if you're not going and looking 10 feet ahead, let's say I'm looking 1 feet or 2 feet ahead, then really already my head is not in good alignment. My posture's not good because I'm looking here and concentrating, and my feet are most likely going to shuffle because I'm going to follow it closely. But if I'm using your example and I'm going like 10 feet, I like 10 feet because, again, I can see a good distance. My head is not having to do this, but instead I should be able to look like this, and I could probably walk longer distance too to keep that 10 feet going every step that I'm taking. So yeah, good example. I like that. That's really good. And then, okay, here's what. Well, I was going to ask you to come up here and give me an example of one of these here. If he could do it, we could do it, right? So we've got, we already answered. I asked who knows what the core is, and everybody went, yeah, right here. We all have a strong, good core, right? And the core is hand in hand with keeping us in good posture. The core is fundamental. Think about it like as our building blocks for our body. You know, if we have a weak core, then everything else falls apart. All the extremities on our body just kind of fall in place. If you have a strong core, that's going to promote everything to be stronger and more tight and rigid. So, you know, since this is the first exercise to demonstrate, I'll go ahead and do it, and then we'll have y'all do the next ones instead. So we've got things like bridges. Okay, a bridge, there's many variations, but if you could see me up here, one thing we can practice on is we can bridge our body like a table. Now, here's the thing. We don't have to do something like that. Or a bird dog. We know what a bird dog is, where we're going opposite arm and opposite leg, right? That's a tough one. Or a plank, like he's doing. Or even like this, a plank. But there's modifications for everything, right? Modifications for it all. So here's a modification on the bridge. You don't have to bridge like I was doing. We start with one leg up, right? We start with the other leg up. We start a little lower off the floor, maybe. Yeah, we just modify. We don't have to be up here on our first one and make it harder. You can modify it and make it even harder like this. We can start lower. We can start with one leg off. Again, there's different variations. On the bird dogs, you don't have to do it the way I was doing it. I was up here in the push-up position and doing this. You can get back on the knees and slow the pace down. Do it from the knees like I'm doing. We might be able to do that one right there. And if we can't, we break up the exercise. Only do the arm first. Or do the leg one at a time. You could, I love it. Y'all, yes, perfect. Yes, yeah, you can lie on your stomach. I'll show you. Yep. This is a swimmer's row. Good for the lower back, by the way. Swimmer's row. Very, very good. Good modification. Excellent. I like that. Very, very good job. Planks, yes. A plank is hard. We're doing a plank. You know, that's really, really hard to do. But we could plank on our knees, right? Where else can we plank at? Where do you think, besides the floor? On the bed, wall, I heard it. Or maybe even this table. I could do that. That's not too hard. Or maybe even right on a wall, somebody said. Here. Or I'm like, hey, wait, I could do this. I'm going to make this harder. Go down lower and further back, right? I'm going to make it harder. Challenge yourself. Somebody said bed, too. Yes. We don't want to fall on the face. My big belief is that there's a modification for everything. We kind of always make it somehow either easier or, again, once we master it, we make it harder. Mm-hmm.
So it gets back to intention as a key.
Oh, yeah, I like that. Yeah. There you go. Right. Yeah.
Wobbly the effort. At least you're trying. You're making it.
That's certainly true. You're right. Yeah, I agree with you. To try. Intention. Yes, ma'am. Yeah, she said it comes down to intention. Whatever I'm going to try, I'm going to do it. Like as long, and that's really, in my belief, the bigger part of it. That's the hardest step to take, is to do it. Yes, all of us, and it goes back to this. Like and marathon runners will tell you this all the time. Anybody could start a marathon, but it's continuing in that marathon that's the harder part, right? It's easier to start something, but the key is what? Consistency, right? Keeping to do it. So that's true. It goes with that intention. Absolutely. Yeah, very, very good point. And again, it's just. it's really about motivation too. It comes down to motivation, self-determination. That's really critical, is just how bad do we want it? How hard do we want to challenge ourselves? Which at the end of the presentation, I'm going to throw down the gauntlet, and I'm going to throw a big challenge to everybody in here as well. Let's see here. Oh, okay, there it goes. It didn't skip one, did it? Let me make sure. Okay, good. Yeah, it went right to stretching. There it goes. Stretching. Anybody in here stretch? Who in here that raised their hand could come up and show me one of a stretch that they like? Or it doesn't have to be anyone on the wall, like a favorite stretch. And you don't have to come up here, by the way. You can just stand up and do it, or sit down and do the stretch. Can I have a volunteer? Yes.
Well, the calf stretch where you go on the slant board.
Sure. Yeah.
Like going uphill,
Mm-hmm.
but your heels are locked against at this angle.
Yeah. Does anybody?
Therefore, you're kind of really giving it your best.
That's good to stretch your calves. She's talking about a 45-degree slant board. You've seen that. Or here, if you haven't seen it, you know where I can't show you in here. Imagine there's stairs in here, right? You can do it on a stair, right? Or another one, I like that with the calf stretch. You can actually go up against the wall and just push back. And in this case, my back leg, I'm stretching that calf. This is another way to do it. Yeah. You could do it from a standing position too. If I want to stretch that calf and make it a little harder because it's a little bit more balance, I can sit here and go like this, and now I'm stretching that calf. Lots of ways to do it. And I'm a big believer that, again, we don't need all this expensive machines and equipment. If we don't have access to it, if we just have a room like we have, we can make it happen.
Lifting your legs right here.
That's a good one too. I like that. Just sitting there, lifting them. You could really feel that stretch. That's good. How about, I am going to have everybody in here volunteer. Here's one. I just thought of one that I really want everyone to try. I'm going to show you one of my favorite stretches because you just reminded me. You could do this from your chair. And one of the ones that a lot of you in here have probably done this, but what you want to do is, this is a very, very good, what they call the couch stretch, but we're sitting in a chair. You're going to sit with your feet wide apart. I'm showing you from a side view because I want you to notice what you want to do is with your arms, go down like this underneath the seat as far as you can, and I want everyone here to hold it a good long 10 seconds. So I'll count backwards from 10. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And we're going to come up and take a deep breath in and breathe it out. Let's bring the arms up. And how do you feel compared to 10 seconds ago before we did that just now? Anybody in here feel better? Doesn't that make us feel like a new woman or new man, right? So yes, just things like stretching are really crucial and vital. I mean, that's one that everybody can do that at home. You could do that kind of stretch. You can also, again, there's a lot of stretches you could do for all parts of the body. One thing that you could do to stretch your knee, because a lot of knee problems, leg problems, you could go like this and challenge yourself. Or if I get a chair, even better yet, I can do it without having to worry about my balance while I'm doing it. Okay. And you can also, again, just different variations of stretching. There's on terms of, and some of them are on the floor, but that's okay. You can, one of my favorite stretches, I'll show you. We got it in this room. And this is hard to find in rooms, but we have one here. We have a corner. So if you have a corner wall, wherever you're at, what you're going to do here is you're going to put yourself here facing diagonally. You're going to put your elbows up like this, and then you're going to move your chest in like this. And that's, yeah, but it hurts really good, though. It hurts really, really good. That's a good stretch because it opens everything. That's one of the ones I was talking about earlier that opens the chest. Has anybody in here done what I just did? Yeah, you know that one. That's a great one, too. So if you have a corner, that's a really, really good one to do.
That's actually the doorway stretch.
Yes, right, exactly. Thank you. Yeah. So the doorway stretch that says, we could do that on the door leading outside. So if you think about it, you grab your hands, right, and then you just step through. You can put your arms up like this, however you want to do it on that stretch. Yeah.
Do you have a book with all this stuff in it?
No, but let me think. If you go to, they're all on the internet and they're all available readily, like free. A good resource for that would be, do you have, does anybody in here? I heard
Somebody named Cindy.
Cindy.
Teaches how to stretch. And even how to learn to get back on the floor and get up safely and all of that.
Okay, good. Yeah. You don't know her last? No.
It's on the internet. Cindy.
Cindy and stretching, or if you Google search the best stretches or best primary exercise stretching, they have them on the what am I thinking? I'm blanking out. There's a book that there's some that are most of them are free usually. You just go online and they have them. There's YouTube videos of them. If you go on YouTube and you type in stretches, they'll give you everything's on there. Yeah, and they have there's a book that I think it's if it's not AARP, then there's another one that's Red Cross. A lot of these nonprofits, like for example, American Cancer Society, American Red Cross. Right, exactly. All the nonprofit. If you look them up, they'll mail you one for free, and they have them readily available on their websites too. Yeah, there's a lot of good ones out there. Yeah, yeah. But it comes down to flexibility. In terms of also balancing, that's important, right? Somebody mentioned just a few minutes ago about how to. Yeah, you said Cindy getting up and off the floor, but also how not to fall too. It's important to do that. In terms of different exercises that you can do to help. And a lot of us have probably seen these for different types of, balance exercises. You can tap your feet side to side. You can also do some marching in place here. Challenge yourself. Once you get better at these, I'm going to try it without my hands. I'm going to try to tap, and I'm going to try to tap. Or I could do my sit to stands, right? Everybody knows what a sit to stand is. You're going to sit, and again, try to maybe use your hands on the chair if you need to, or try to do it without them. And then challenge yourself and do 10 in a row,
When you do that, I learned from another class, if you squeeze your glutes and hold in your stomach, you're using your core more than your knees and thighs to get you up. And you will find, I have found, it's actually easier than just trying to stand up moving my legs.
Good point, yeah.
Can you demonstrate that?
Yeah, well, like she said, so for example, if you're, like she said, squeezing in your glutes and tightening your abs when you stand up, you're taking some of the pressure off of the knees. So let's see, if I'm tightening everything here, it is a lot easier. Rather than if I didn't do that, if I was just going to do 100% on my knees, I'm going to really push up. So naturally, most of us probably would tighten everything and tighten our glutes because we know we're about to get and stand up, so we would be in the position to do that. But that's good. Anything that you could do to alleviate and take the pressure off.
Yeah. Balance assessments.
Yep. Oh, they do? Okay, good. Yeah.
That's one of the things they do. They
is a sit to stand.
just get up from your chair.
Oh, good.
Seconds without using your hand.
Oh, yeah. Well, there you go. That's a good incentive then, is to pass that test and get better and better every time. They do it like annually or once in a while, just.
I think it's usually in Peachtree City, and it just shows up in the program guide every so often.
I love it. That's great. That's really good. Standing on one, I can't do what she's doing, but standing on one leg, that's a challenge. You can do, how about the heel to toe walk? Does anybody know what that one is? Yep. We want to go in a straight line and walk heel in front of toe, like your tightrope. That's another name for it. It's a balance one. And, all of the different, the key of it is to avoid falling and not to push yourself too much. And so if you feel like, whatever, like let's say that I need a cane and I'm supposed to use my cane. And some people get self-conscious over that over time. Like, I don't want to use my cane. I'll be okay. And I'm walking around and there's little kids running around. Well, if one of them runs up, they might, teeter-totter, and I might feel imbalanced. Plus, one of the things the doctors will tell you is that if you have a cane visible and you're supposed to use it, even if you feel like you don't need it, bring it, because especially kids and parents with kids are usually more prone to being more careful. Like, hey, be careful, Timmy. Watch where you're going. If they see that, because that gives you, a little bit more just presence and knowledge for others not to mess around too much. Yeah.
But it's still key to be careful because I had a shattered hip at one time. I'll still wear my crutches, and then people will see, and I almost fell so many times because people were in such a hurry.
Oh.
They weren't even watching.
Oh, that's not good. So sometimes, yeah, when that happens, when people aren't paying attention, there's not much we could do to avoid that if people are just, yeah. Yes, yeah. But, and again, we talked about a little bit on the strength training. Does anybody in here use the equipment or the fitness classes? And oh, good, lots of hand. Yeah, I love it. Yeah. That shouldn't surprise me because again, we know the benefits of exercise and what all that does, right? So we did some sit to stands. If you're doing things like squats, we can try to engage, tighten the core, bring yourself down to a good squat, and then come back up. You can do your push-ups on the floor. If you can't do a push-up on the floor, well, we can modify it like she's doing and come over here and I could do my push-ups now right here and challenge myself. I'm like, hey, that's getting easier. Then move yourself down lower and back away further and keep going until it just feels like you can't do them, to a certain height level. Lunges are great. We could do a lunge where you're lunging, with the leg. If that's too much, then we have our trusty, well, I'll just show you at the table. We hold on to something and we get in position and we just challenge ourselves. Don't go as down low as I did. Just bang it down just a little and hold it here for about 10, 15 seconds and keep challenging yourself every day and say, I'm going to try each leg that way and I'm going to lunge and hold it for about 10, 15 seconds. And then we'll progressively work better and better as we're getting better on that. And dips, sure how sturdy this table is, so yeah, we'll go here and work on the triceps, right? What she's doing?
You were just doing push-ups in a different way.
Oh, the seated rows. Yeah, seated rows. Sorry, yeah. So on a seated row, if we had a machine where you're sitting down, well, in this case, I guess this is where the equipment comes in, or the bands. Bands are really good. The TheraBands where you put around your feet. Yeah, if you row like this. I'm thinking about how, besides this one, we had shown, this is the same exercise if we're doing our row. You can mix it up a little bit differently too. And if you have your TheraBand, but also if I had 2 water bottles, I can take each one of them and do the standing row. I can go like this. I could get creative if I had, again, another water bottle in my hand. I can bend over and hinge and do these guys right here, just like back rows where I'm standing. So I'm a big advocate of, like, if you don't have the equipment, don't have the machines, we can always get creative and do that if we need to. Oh yeah, right, there you go. Canned vegetables, soup, I like it, yeah, because those are dense and hard. Those are heavy and those would mimic like a dumbbell. So if I had 2 cans of vegetable soup in each hand, I can do some of those rows there. That would be a seated row. I can do my standing row this way with them. That would get tiresome after a while doing some of those. Yeah.
Just to clarify the term row, are we talking about like rowing a boat?
No, yeah, so like, yeah, for example, we're talking on muscular strength rowing, you're talking about you would count like a number of repetitions and say, I'm going to do 15 of these. There's a cardio way to row too, like the cardio endurance row. There, the rowing machine, like where you sit. Do you have that, like, access to maybe? You've seen those, like where I'm describing it. Literally looks like you're in a rowboat or a kayak, and you're literally sitting there and doing that, and you're not counting to 15, but you're doing it like for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and that's more of an aerobic exercise, and that would be a row, a good machine to do too, if they have it. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So here, the word row, for the clarification, I'm wondering, is like sequence or consecutive, being consecutive. It's not like row in an action.
Correct, right. Not rowing for time, but rowing for sequence or repetitions. Right, exactly. When you're talking about muscular strength training. Because here, here's to really, really dissect that and answer that. Aerobic versus anaerobic are 2 separate concepts. When we're talking about cardiovascular, I would be saying go for your power walk, go do your rowing machine for 10 minutes, go do your bicycling, go do your swimming, go do your group exercise class for aerobic. Those are aerobics. That's where with oxygen, we're moving over time, more longer periods. What we're talking about here, this slide really is anaerobic. This is the opposite to that. This is more, you're counting repetitions for a number of sets at a certain resistance level of strength. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, good questions. Yes, very, very good. And then, what can we continue to do, in terms of improving what we've really talked about and hit the nail on the head, right? So we already know we want to continue to do everything up here. Staying active, adopting better eating habits, get out there and socialize, take advantage of what Fayette Senior Services have, go and take care of going to the doctor every year, making sure that you're up on all of your testing, especially us guys for prostate things, cardiovascular checks, calcium scores. For women, regular breast exams, making sure that you get your annual exam with your doctor. For stress level, managing stress. That's a whole, let's see. I was talking to the head of the Fayette Senior Services here. Just recently, didn't they have some type of management stress seminar here, or the other Fayette Senior Services? I thought they had some kind of stress management program that they'd gone into. I thought they did. I was under the impression that they had somebody come out and talk about it. It was for
The employees.
Oh, was it for the employees? Maybe they needed it more. Yeah, it was for them. Maybe that's what you could be right about that. They might need it. Get enough sleep. Does anybody in here get enough sleep? We want as much sleep as possible. Mm-hmm.
So if you could find a way for me to get, actually what I used to get was 7 hours sleep, and then as I got older, my bladder muscles.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So how would you strengthen them?
Yeah, yeah. To answer that correctly, a medical doctor is going to be the best to answer. Like for example, in that example, like, hey, my bladder, it wakes me up at 2 o'clock in the morning, and I have to keep going. That's very constant. What I have heard, and this again, don't take it from me because I'm not a medical doctor, but I've heard that if you challenge yourself over time and break up the bathroom breaks periodically, that's, in other words, if you could push it a little further and say, okay, I made it without having to go to the bathroom this long, and I've made it from having to go this long. Theoretically, it's supposed to help in that case, but really, I'll give you an example using me. Whenever I do long distance driving, if I go drive, my parents live in Florida, so I go there every major holiday. I don't want to stop at the bathroom every 15 minutes. So what I purposely do, and my intent is correct. Yes, I mean, even though that's counterintuitive, and we say, hey, you're supposed to drink water all the time. Yes, you are supposed to, but in those cases of those trips, I know ahead of time, I really dehydrate myself as much as possible because I want to go as far as I can, before we have to stop for a bathroom break.
You must not take your kids with you.
We do, but I try to tire them out and get them asleep at the playground before we go. So everything's strategic. It's all about strategy in terms of planning everything out. Yeah, there you go. That's good because that is hydration, by the way, too. There is water in fruit, and that will keep you rehydrated, and that's a better way because then it's not all fluid and liquid that constantly makes you, stop.
There are Kegel, what do they call them?
Kegel exercises, yeah. You're right, where you contract and constrict. And again, I'm not medically trained on that, but that's a good question for the doctor just to ask and say, look, I keep getting up in the middle of the night, what? And I'm trying to avoid it without having the answer like, well, here's a medicine you could take. Because, my dad, he's got prostate issues. He has to take certain medications. And there comes a time where we may have to go that route. But for that very problem, that's what my dad does, using him as an example. And then staying mentally fit as well. Avoiding things that are deterrents, such as alcohol, smoking, things like that. Maintaining those relationships are very, very important. And then finally, practicing gratitude. I think that's really key and fundamental too. I think in this society, again, not to go off a huge tangent, but we're just always on the go, and it's all about me, and traffic, just nasty traffic. People are rude. People cut us off all the time, and all of this stuff. If we could just take a deep breath in, and again, just kind of meditate and take our time and breathe deeply and just treat others great, and the worse they are to us, just turn around and keep giving them grace and showing them grace and kill them with kindness. That's usually the best thing that works at the end of the day, because really that's up to us. That will keep us sane, and that'll keep us to where our blood pressure is normal, our heart rate's good, and we feel at our optimal level throughout life. So let's conclude all this together. These are the things to kind of look at when you go to your doctor, or when you're working out and exercising, or just thinking about it on an everyday basis, just saying, how is my weight? Don't get too hung up on. I'm not saying check your body weight every morning. No, what I'm talking about is, are we in the healthy weight range? Month by month. Just say, okay, this is May and June. I'm this weight. My goal, I want to lose 1 pound. I can do that. I can lose 1 pound if I'm trying to be on a weight loss program. I could lose 1 pound of body fat, right? And you could challenge yourself that way. In terms of looking at body fat percentage, you can have your body fat checked. There's machines that are very budget friendly and easy. I've got a handheld device that costs $20, and you've seen them. You just put your hands on it, or the weight scales that you step on. They can tell you what your body fat percentage is. They're getting really slick now with iPhone and technology and everything about what they can do in terms of what's available technology-wise. What your height to weight ratio is, that's your BMI, aka body mass index. Again, muscular strength, endurance, cardiovascular, flexibility. Again, we're just kind of reiterating the point. I'm just repeating myself a lot here using, again, just the same things in terms of what else do we need to work on, and that's what we can improve on and get better at as we're going through life. And so my final last thing that I'm going to kind of declare here, so to speak, like a declarative statement to end it all, we want to age with confidence. And so again, think of, just for yourself, this is only inside your own mind, what's one thing that you can improve on leaving out of this room to keep it simple. That's my method. I just want to keep it simple for everybody and just plainly say that, this is not rocket surgery or brain science. This is literally just taking things together and keeping it nice and compartmentalized to say, okay, this is my goal. If it was me, I would like to get more sleep. I'm going to get 30 more minutes of sleep every night. I'm going to do that intentionally. I could do that for myself. I'm going to cut my coffee down from 2 cups to 1.5 cups every day. I'm going to, again, insert the fill in the blank. There's one thing that each and every one of us in here, think about that, leave today and really focus on that and let that kind of be your challenge. That's my challenge to you for the rest of this year or until we see each other next time. And then you could tell me what the one thing that you worked better on that you're, really committed yourself to. And just think about what that could be. How could you better be a more positive contribution to society, to your family, to your loved ones, to yourself? What can you do? What is that one thing that you can do? So that brings the presentation to the end, and we'll kind of reserve the last couple minutes here if there's any questions at all. I know we covered a lot, but yes, let's take the next 5 minutes and answer some things here.
I have 2 knee replacements. If I fall down, I can't get up. I'm trying my best to find a way to get up without, somebody, my neighbors have to come do, when I fall or something.
Right, yeah.
I hate to call somebody.
Yeah, and
I can't bend them to get up.
Yeah, yeah.
And this one of them heavy than the other. They feel like rocks. I can't get up, so I have to be careful when I walk.
That's the key, is just being so careful, and you're right, just take your time. Because one thing I would hate, I don't want anyone in this room to fall down. I mean, having a fall would be, critical to avoid. So all I can say is just keep working on those sit to stands that we were talking about. But also ultimately, one of the best exercises is literally if you could get to the point where you're saying, okay, I'm going to try this. I'm going to try to get down on the floor and challenge yourself. Can you get on the floor? And eventually get to that point, just to strengthen those muscles and just get to that point where you can do that.
I was going to say, one of my friends, my mom's best friend, fell while she was in a closet. She couldn't get up. It took her a few hours to be able to get up. So one of the things that I decided years ago, I was going to learn different ways to get up off the floor. So I have a couple, because standing right up doesn't work for me, and I'll show you one. You can get on the floor. If you get down, if you can get your knees, put one knee up, and you can't do that. Well, you might try something else to grab, if you can get to a piece of furniture.
You have something to get up with. Yeah.
Right, and because I find I can push myself up.
That's beautiful. That's not easy.
No, it's not, but I practice doing it so
Uh-huh.
that I can at least have one way to get
But
up.
I fall gracefully.
I fell not gracefully in December, dislocated my shoulder and tore 2 of the 4 rotator cuff muscles off the bone. So I'm working on doing this so I can do all kinds of things.
Good for
I was
you.
able to get up doing this.
Oh yeah, repeat. Yes, right. Practice. Yeah.
and you're lying on your back or stomach, I think the place where you find yourself at a certain age physically can determine how flexible or inflexible you might be.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just thinking about if you fall, if a person falls, how likely or able could you be to roll over? Or what would help? It's almost like a turtle. You're turtle on your back. So how do you, if you just kind of rock?
And practice that.
I'm asking and saying.
And you're answering it. You are. That would be the answer, to practice over and over. Yeah, to roll with it. I like that. Just go with the momentum. Yeah. I am. I want to say that I was told we do have to finish right now. We're literally right on the dot of having to close and conclude. I want to thank everybody. If you have any other follow-up questions, I'm going to ask you, if you haven't already yet, my phone number, my email's on the way out. If you could please go ahead and leave your evaluation forms as well, or give them to Amber or whoever usually takes them. But I want to thank everybody for your time. I'm sorry we have to wrap it up here, but yes, I'll definitely be back. And again, I appreciate this. It was very nice to meet y'all. And again, y'all be safe. Do we have any mothers or grandmothers in this room at all? Happy Mother's Day to you all. Okay. Thank you so much again, and very nice to meet you. I hope to see you soon too. Okay.